And welcome back, guys, to another episode of Katawa Shoujo. In the last part, I guess we told Hanako that me and Lily are together, and now we're in a bath together. You know, after thinking about his future, you know, with his head, he's gonna start thinking about the future with his, you know, precious member. So let's get this over and done with, shall we? She feels out the side of the bathtub, then slowly lowers herself in, my breath catching when she sits and leans her back onto my front, her legs inside mine. I had expected her to sit at the other end. Aww. It's kind of cute, even though she's naked. Yes. Body things. Letting out a long length to calm myself, I rest my arms on the sides of the bath as I struggle to control my urges. Far from missing the sight of her assets, the feeling of her body against mine is surprisingly relaxing. If Lily is so sensitive to touch, it must be all the more so for her. You run your baths quite hot, don't you? A bit. Do you want me to run some cold water to cool it down a bit? I love hot baths. I like I said last part. If you're not losing a layer of skin when you enter, it's not worth it. You gotta kill whatever is sitting on your body. If you know what I mean. She gives a small shake of her head. No, this is fine. Okay. The conversation comes to an abrupt end, silence taking over. A very long and very awkward silence. Maybe this is a bit too... Don't worry, it's okay. The situation only becomes even more awkward. As if to distract herself, Lily runs her free hand over her legs while holding one over her breast for modesty. I sit idly watching the wall ahead of me and the rising steam, every now and again stealing a glimpse of her body. The white of her skin glistens as she keeps sliding her hands over her legs. Their length and tone are the more obvious. You know, compared to Akira, you look a lot more foreign. I took after my mother's side, genetically. Akira took after my father more. I guess that makes sense. How on earth did a native Scot and a Japanese businessman meet anyway? My mother was a journalist. She met my father while he was at the conference in Inverness? Inverness? Ooh, that's a place. Yeah, gonna have to figure out where that is. That's probably in Scotland, I'm gonna say. Well, there was a journalist, yeah, so... So she was in Japan. She met my father when he was at a conference in Inverness. I guess, is Inverness in Japan? Oh, God, now I'm all over the place. The fact that I am more curious about this place than what is transpiring on the screen right now. It's very interesting, but regardless. Ah, I see. Taking after your Scottish side would explain your height, I suppose. I look back down at her as she nods, and a sigh at the ridiculousness of the situation. This really is too much, isn't it? You're enjoying it though, aren't you? Uh-oh. Yeah, because remember, she's leaning up against something. Winky face. In some ways, yes. I guess things turned out okay in the end. Everything's settled down. Hanako took our relationship well, and we'll be going back to school tomorrow. Indeed, it's a shame that we're going back so soon, but we'll still have our memories of this place. Jesus, they're thinking on the same wavelength, and it's so weird. I mean, it's great, but it's like, wow, what's the coincidence of this? You know? And you know, like, if I hadn't kept this lewd scene in, I wouldn't have learned about her parents there. Like, now that I think about it, like, would they have just cut to black? Or, yeah, maybe this conversation could still be happening. They just didn't show the CG art. Memories, huh? I suppose so. We'll have to see how everything goes once we get back. But for now, I'm just glad you like me. I've been winding myself up for weeks about that, so I am thankful for things turning out like this. She nods, leaning into me as we share the warmth of our bodies. I'm not sure whether she'll be okay with it or not, but my temptation rapidly begins to get the better of my self-restraint. Hey, Lily? Yes? How was it? Last night, that is. She pauses in thought, looking down slightly. A delicate smile finds its way onto her lips as she blushes. Her body becomes more relaxed. It's more than enough to answer the question. Even as I give a small nod in response, thoughts of last night run through my mind. Considering the situation, I don't really think anyone would blame me. Jeez, anyone would blame me. God, it could have been worded better. Anyone. I don't even think you need the contraction there, to be perfectly honest. You could just, anyone would blame me. Would have been just fine. Sao, your heart's beating. Her voice is cut off as I delicately place a hand on her thigh. While I resisted before, the memories of our first time is enough to make me give in. She lets her body lean into mine without a word of protest, an invitation that I'd be hard put to ignore. I place a small kiss on her neck to accept, before slowly moving my hand over her smooth legs. Sao, please. Please what? Even as she says it, her mouth curls upward into a smile, her tone caught between embarrassment and awkward giggling. Oh my. Now he's being smooth again. You know, like, that's such an interesting endeavor. Eventually, she takes one of my hands in hers, guiding it to her right breast. I greatly appreciate the tentative guidance she is willing to give me. All signs of tension in her body give way. I continue to take in the feeling of her soft skin, redoubled as my other hand slips between her legs. I wonder if the feeling of my hands on her is exaggerated by the lack of sight, since her other senses are so finely tuned. She does seem to enjoy it to a surprising extent, after all. It gives me a somewhat odd feeling, but a pleasurable one. It only takes a few minutes before her body starts to squirm ever so slightly. Her efforts to stifle her moaning becomes visible as she purses her lips. Her light-hearted whispered protestations, Jesus, before noticeably more quiet. This makes me realize that all her squirming against my body makes me increasingly excited as well. Lily. I withdraw my hand to give her addled senses time to respond. Nodding, she shakily stands and offers her hand for me to lead her out of the cramped bathroom. Or bathtub, not bathroom. Okay, they're on top of each other. Law. And they're being all seductive and stuff. She maneuvers herself onto the bath as I do. Out of the bath. As I do, our hands holding each other's. Eventually I sit beside the bathtub, the two of us fussing around a little until we get comfortable. With a small gasp, desperately constrained to avoid being audible outside, she lowers herself onto me once again. The way she moves makes it obvious that she must still be on the verge of her climax. She slowly starts to move her hips up and down, her tongue finding mine as she holds my face upwards. I realize just how much pleasuring her has excited me. Alright, she's moaning his name. I don't particularly need to say it. I'm already feeling awkward as it is. Despite her clouded eyes being shut, her tightened grip on my shoulders shows that she's nearing the end of her endurance. As our breathing becomes more and more ragged, I rapidly feel my limit approaching as well. A series of harsh breaths is the only warning before her final gasp of ecstasy, her entire body tensing and her fingernails digging into my shoulders. My loins hit hers, both of us freeze against each other in climax. Kaboom! I'm sorry, I don't mean to make lightheart of that. It should never kaboom. I'm gonna say that right now. It should never kaboom. Keeping it in. In a few precious seconds, it's all over. Lily slumps forward onto me as I try to regain myself. That was good. She takes a gulp of air before replying, steadying herself as she nods. She bows her head down to give me a small kiss, my hands reaching up to hold strands of her disheveled hair as we once again sit in blissful silence. Gosh. I mean, let's be fair, they're 18. They're gonna go like rabbits, to be perfectly honest. What were you expecting, right? Yeah, that's right. You're all tuckered out. After a chaotic dash to the station and finding our seats in an otherwise deserted carriage, we promptly crashed. Looking at the time, close to midnight, it's a little surprise that a few take to this particular train. Hanako is fast asleep on Lily's shoulder, and I can only barely muster the energy to stay awake. The excitement we had a while ago probably didn't help. I'd probably be pretty depressed about going back to school if my brain was actually working. Yeah. It's misfiring in any sense. As it is, though, the sight of the nighttime scenery scrolling by is surprisingly beautiful. My loud yawn is nearly wholly drawn out by the clacking of the train tracks, and the old carriage is rattling. So tired. And whose fault is that, Hisao? She really doesn't toe the line between insulting and amusing sometimes, though I manage to wring out a weary smile. I look out the window, my reflection just visible on the clear pane. Truth be told, she's perfectly correct. If it weren't for that little interlude a few hours ago, both of us would have a lot more energy. On top of that, we both had to take another bath, very nearly making us late for the train's departure. Yeah, it was mine. Still, getting into a bath with a guy is a dangerous thing to do. Evidently. Sorry, I guess I kind of took advantage of the situation back there. Well, I didn't exactly hate it. As she trails off, I look back to her. My eyes narrow as I see her slightly reddened cheeks and small grin, her mind obviously elsewhere. Say it. I knew the possibility of it happening was there. I knew it. You're just as dirty-minded as I am. She quickly coughs into her free hand, making her disapproval crystal clear. That's a rather crude way of putting it. Oh, and you would suggest? I merely have a healthy adolescent sex drive. So, in other words, dirty-minded. Almost seeming... I like how she's puffing her cheeks. That's really cute. Almost seeming to sense the moment, Hanako mumbles quietly as she furrows her brow in Lily's lap. Just sort of like Hanako is like half asleep going, oh my god, they're talking about doing it. Looks of disapproval melts away as she gently smiles and strokes her hand on Hanako's long, dark hair. All I can do is watch and smile. If someone were to ask me when I fell in love with her, I wouldn't be able to answer. The best I'd be able to come up with is it just happened at some point, but I didn't realize it. If someone were to ask me why I love her, though, then I could answer much more easily. You really love Hanako, don't you? She gives a deep nod, smiling warmly. It's a pity. We just returned to school. She seemed to relax so much while we were all away. Talk about Hanako or talk about the school? I don't see why. We asked the question. Why, change the subject so abruptly? Yeah. I might as well talk about Hanako. I don't see why talking about the school would... Nah, that seems odd. Yeah, I don't see why we would change the subject. Yeah, let's just talk about Hanako. I wouldn't worry. Hanako's been gaining confidence thanks to you. At least For as long as I've known you two. She gives a self-deprecating sigh. I think I merely provided her with company and support. Since she came to know you, she's opened up much more, even to me. I get the feeling she's understating her influence on Hanako, especially given that before the two came to know each other, Hanako had no friends to speak of. The friends I'd had in my previous school fulfilled what I'd have expected of them, for the most part simply being there for idle chatter, but in Hanako and Lily, there really feels to be more to their relationship. A part of me envies it, but another can't ignore the fact that the school year will eventually end. After graduation, I really have no idea what Hanako will do. This trip has shown me just how much we've all come to depend on each other. Indeed, we're all going to have to make decisions. Maybe that's the reason why, despite our returning to school also heralding a return to the normalcy of our everyday life, I can't help feeling a little restless. On the bright side, it won't take long for the summer holidays to arrive after our exams are finished. We could come back here during the summer holidays if you want. For a moment she thinks on the notion, her face becoming somewhat distant. I can only guess she's reflecting on all that's happened here. That would be good, I think. I nod approvingly, smiling at her. Summer, together with Lily, this idea seems like the perfect way to spend our holiday. Oh. Oh, we're into Act 3. Future? Yeah, obviously. Act 4 is future, of course. After the excitement of our trip to Hokkaido, it seems strange to be right back to the usual daily routine so soon. Indeed, it feels like a normal day, the same as any other. Well, that's what I'd like to think, anyway. To tell you the truth, the atmosphere of the entire class, no, the entire school has changed. While the undercurrent of subdued trepidation has previously pervaded the school... Fuck! Sal, I'm gonna hit you. No, just for a moment. That sentence. You did not need to word it that way. A high school student would not word it that way. That is actually the most heinous of the use of vocabulary. While an undercurrent of subdued trepidation had previously pervaded the class. Holy shit. Come on, guys. I mean, bravo to the writer. It's a well-written sentence, you know? It gets that point across very, very well, but he's from high school, and I know he reads a lot, and I know that could be a caveat to why he's able to use words like this, but holy crapoli. that is definitely a little too highbrow for a guy that's 18 years old. Now that the exams are in sight, it boiled over into frantic studying, rarely seen otherwise. One day until exams start. It's horrific, really. That instead of studying, we went and wasted our time up north. We were such model students, too. Uh-oh. Glancing around the class, even the bubbly, ever-energetic Misha seems oddly deflated. She sits at her desk, nervously chewing a pen while Muto lectures from the front of the class. Wait, on closer inspection, I do believe she's eating it. She's eating the crayons. Oh, Misha. Never change, but change immediately. Oh, dear. Tearing my eyes away from the sorry spectacle, I turn my attention elsewhere. Hanako sits frantically scribbling in her notebook, her face mere inches away from the page, seemingly trying to record every word that leaves Muto's mouth. Shizune is, well, Shizune, cool as a cucumber as she sits diligently taking notes with her attention wholly focused on the front of the class. Actually, why would she... I know this sounds terrible, but why would she be paying attention to the front of the class? Because obviously Misha would be signing the things that Muto is saying to her, because they don't seem to have an interpreter for the front of the class, right? Not that we have been told about that. So she's taking notes from what's written on the blackboard, I guess. I mean, that's the only logical thing, but like the nuances of what Muto is speaking about, you think that Misha would be reflecting that. Because I wouldn't rely on Misha to like reproduce it after the fact. She could be better at that than I realized, though. Who knows? Truth be told, it's what I should be doing as well, if not for the fact that I feel like I have a pretty good handle on what's being covered already. I wonder how Lily's doing. Well, she does have a good head on her. She has plenty on her plate, unlike me. Her class representative duties, taking care of Hanako, her other social contacts, her extra English studies. That girl really does take on a lot. And she's taken on a boyfriend, too. But I think she's hoping you're a little self-sufficient. And the same goes for Hanako, to be perfectly honest. Lily doesn't really see herself, at least from what I gather, as like really taking care of Hanako. It's more about just being there for her. And I'm really noticing that Hanako is taking a lot more measures to be independent, which I think is really, really good. And I'm interested to see if that would change in her path. So I may actually do her path next, depending upon how long Act 4 is here. But with that sort of thought escaping my mind, I think we are just about good to end this part. So take care, guys. Stay frosty, and I'll see you tomorrow.